What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and taking a little break from our friend Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerun, we're going to jump over to one, or at least the first of the digital drops associated with this, and that is Astarion's Book of Hungers. Just because it's new, and honestly, that's how the algorithm works. So we're going to go back and cover all the things we had planned to cover anyway, but for right now, we're going to take a little break from that and at least look at the new updated 2024 Dhampir species that is in Astarion's Book of Hungers. So we originally got the Dhampir in, I believe it was Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and it was a, what did they call it? A lineage, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and do a comparison between the two, see what we think about the updates, and then just kind of talk about it. There's obviously a bunch of new content that's in those books, a ton of new feats, believe it or not, in the Astarion's Book of Hungers. So let's go ahead and do that. By the way, if you like this kind of stuff and you like to support the channel, please consider subscribing, and, obviously commenting helps too, but I can't force you to do that. Technically, I can't force you to do anything, but I do appreciate it if you do it. So let's go ahead and dive in. Following what we've been doing, we're going to go ahead and look at the entire 2024 version that we see in front of us here, and then we'll go look at the one in Van Richten's and kind of talk about it. So it's going to follow the sort of rules, obviously, of 2024, so you're not going to see any ability score improvements tied to this, because those are now shifted over to being tied to the backgrounds. So you can see that you're going to, first of all, be medium or small, your choice. You are considered a humanoid, even though you are technically a Dhampir. You are considered humanoid in terms of 2024, abilities and things. Your movement speed is 35, so you're going to start with a little bit more than everybody. Remember, in 2024, base movement speed is 30 for every species, except for obviously those who have more. You're going to get dark vision out to a range of 60 feet. You're also going to have a climb speed equal to your movement speed. However, when you reach character level 3, you can now move up, down, and across vertical surfaces and along ceilings while leaving your hands free. I actually really like this change. Rather than it being spider climb per the spell or anything, it is just the climb speed, and then when you hit a certain level, it is now basically you are Spider-Man. You're resistant to necrotic damage, which obviously makes sense. And then you have your vampiric bite, which is when you go to use your unarmed strike in any way that would be and deal damage, you can choose to bite with your fangs. You deal piercing damage equal to a d4 plus your constitution modifier instead of the normal damage of your unarmed strike. In addition, when you deal damage to a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you can empower yourself in one of the following ways. You can either use the Drain capability, where you regain hit points equal to the piercing damage you deal, and then Strengthen, which is you gain a bonus to the next ability check or attack roll you make within the next minute. The bonus is equal to the piercing damage dealt. And you can use that Empower trait proficiency bonus times per long rest. So I like this. I like a lot of the changes. I was really hopeful that you could trick it's the wrong term, but you know what I mean? Like, use vampiric bite as a monk, because of the fact that it says, like, when you use your unarmed strike and deal damage, you can choose to bite with your fangs. But I looked at monk, and monk has you roll a d6 in place of the normal damage of your unarmed strike. But the vampiric bite says you deal piercing damage equal to 1d4 plus your constitution modifier instead of the normal damage of your unarmed strike. And the martial arts die says in place of the normal damage. So I think they're sort of competing features, the way I look at that. So, because it actually would have been kind of pretty neat to be a a Dhampir monk and be able to make all of your unarmed strikes as bite attacks and just which I think would be kind of cool. I mean, obviously, you'd run out of the ability to use the empowered version of it, but it still would be pretty cool to do like 5 bites on a turn, and then obviously not have the bite be a d4, have the bite be tied to whatever the monk's martial art die was. And I mean, honestly, that may be something you could convince your DM to let you do, but yeah, I'm not sure. So, yeah, that's the overall look. Let's take a look at the version here from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So, let's see if we scroll down to the traits. You are humanoid. You were medium or small, your choice. Your walking speed was 35 feet. That's all the same. Then it said ancestral legacy. If you replace a race with this lineage, you can keep the following elements of that race. Any skill proficiencies you gained from it, any climbing, flying, or swimming speed you gain from it. If you don't keep any of those elements or choose this lineage at character creation, you gain 2 skill proficiencies of your choice. So basically, the best thing you could have done in theory to min-max, as it were, in 2014 would be choose a race that gave you skill proficiencies and some additional kind of speed, whether that be climbing, flying, or swimming, because you would still retain that in your Dhampir form, and you would retain the skill proficiencies you had, in addition to the 35 feet of movement speed and all of the other options that are here from the 2014 Dhampir. You do get the climb speed innately here, but I think you get that anyway. If we were to continue looking at the Dhampir, you get dark vision out to 60 feet. You don't need to breathe, deathless nature. Spider climb, you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. Okay, and it was actually the same back then. I just didn't recall. At 3rd level, you can move up and down across vertical surfaces. Okay. Then you had your vampiric bite. Let's see. Which counts as a simple melee weapon for which you are proficient. You add your constitution modifier instead of your strength to the attack and damage rolls when you attack with this bite. Deals piercing damage equal to a D4. While you're missing half or more of your hit points, you have advantage on this bite. Does not work on constructs or undead. Okay. You can basically empower it, as it says, regain hit points equal to the piercing damage dealt, or gain a bonus to the next ability check or attack roll you make. The bonus equals the piercing damage dealt, and that was proficiency bonus times prolonged rest. Honestly, it's not much different than what we got. They're actually quite similar. It was ability check and attack roll. That's the same. Yeah. It's still a D4. The only difference, I guess, is it says you add your constitution modifier instead of your strength modifier to your attack and damage rolls. And here it just says when you use your unarmed strike. So it's not, it's the damage is being a D4 plus your constitution modifier instead of the normal damage, but your to hit is still determined by whatever you're using to hit with your unarmed strike. So I guess that gives you a little bit more sort of leeway or options there. Again, the drain function looks to be exactly the same, as does the ability. I do like how in 2024 they kind of give abilities names like this, like you could choose drain or strengthen. I like that. I think it's a little cleaner, a little easier to understand, but that is effectively the same in just about every way other than like how you hit with the unarmed strike being slightly different. The spider climb is the same. Dark vision is the same. You had deathless nature before was you don't need to breathe. Now it's resistance to necrotic damage. Arguably, resistance to necrotic damage is more beneficial in the long term than not needing to breathe, because this is situational. The chances of you possibly encountering necrotic damage to some degree are probably more likely. But I mean, I also don't see why you couldn't just have both, to be honest. Again, we talked about you do technically now get a climb speed equal to your speed. You did. Oh, no, you got that as well. So realistically, I guess you get the improvement of having necrotic resistance over the ability to hold, to not need to breathe. But you don't have this ancestral legacy piece, which actually could have benefited you, because even if you don't choose to keep anything from your previous race, you still got proficiency in 2 skills. So more or less, this version's a little bit of a nerf, because essentially, like I said, you're getting all of the same features, but with necrotic resistance and missing out on 2 skill proficiencies and potential flying or swimming speed based on this. I'm a little shocked, to be honest. I do feel like in most instances, 2024 seems to be more of like a power up for things, whereas this feels like maybe a lateral, maybe even a slight power down to some degree. But they did keep I mean, I hate to say it like this, but it almost feels like, why'd you bother changing it or like reprinting it at all? Because it feels like you kind of just I mean, they didn't change anything drastically. And, maybe, but like there are some instances of that happening. Like we look at how they changed, like dwarves, for example, used to have multiple sub options that you would choose. They consolidated that down to one, and stone cunning, rather than being a situational skill check, is now turn on tremor sense a couple of times a day, which is arguably way more useful than the caveat of however you want to use stone cunning if your DM even puts you in a situation to use it. This is almost identical in every way, so it kind of almost is like, why did you bother reprinting it? There wasn't any drastic shifts. Again, like I said, I do agree that necrotic damage is a better thing than not needing to breathe, but you do lose out on the skill proficiencies and stuff from Ancestral Legacy. Maybe I'm just, really overanalyzing this and nitpicking beyond belief, but let me know your opinions on this in the comments down below. And stay tuned next time where we're either going to go back to Forgotten Realms, books, or we'll continue on to talk about the different feats here in Astarion's Book of Hungers. See you next time.